Another question along the same lines, things that show up on us physically. Our physical bodies, we create. I think I understand you in that we don't get anything that we do not create ourselves.
You don't get anything that is not in vibrational alignment with the vibration that you are offering.
Okay, the example we were discussing last night, what about someone who manifests something on their body, and I'll use the extreme, a mole with hair growing on it out of your forehead. I know a person didn't think, God, I'm so scared I'm going to get a mole with hair on it out of my forehead. So how does something like that manifest?
Usually the vibrational set point on the emotional scale that causes that is an attitude of self-awareness, self-criticism, self-consciousness. I want to look good, I fear that I don't. I want to look good, you're looking at me and I can tell that you don't think that I do look good. In other words, it's usually a soft vibration. In other words, let's talk about these, because the different set points. So what do you think, from what you know of the emotions that you feel, what do you think would be a logical equivalent in terms of physical disallowance of well-being? Now let's start this in the right way. Well-being is flowing, and unless you're doing that thing that you do that doesn't allow it to flow, you will be thriving in this attitude of well-being, which means you'll be vital and alive, you'll be good feeling, you'll be flexible, you'll feel good. Because all of you are wanting that well-being. In other words, that is a given. We'll talk about that in a little bit, about those who come forth that are born differently. That's a different thing altogether. But when you come forth and your body is the way you have intended it to be, and then it begins migrating toward unwanted things, it is because of a sustained vibrational pattern that you're offering. So what do you think would be a vibrational equivalent in terms of diagnosis to overwhelmment and frustration? Things like headaches, things like physical discomfort, muscle aches, maybe even cramping in your feet, that sort of thing. Things that can rather easily be resolved because there's not much tension in that. So then what do you think would be a vibrational equivalent to something that is like despair or fear?
Something a little more chronic.
Something much more serious, something that replicates your feeling of powerlessness.
Something bad like cancer, or heart disease,
something
or
that where they would say to you, we have very little control over this, because it replicates your feeling of lack of control.
That you have no power in your life.
So where do you think strokes and heart attacks would fall? Rage, anger, in other words, for the most part. Now, of course, there are exceptions to this, and the reason that it is really not accurate for us to try to nail any disease to any exact emotion is because everyone has different emotional set points relative to different things in their life. But if there is something in your life that is really, really bothering you, meaning that you're giving it a lot of attention, and it's interesting as we watch you, you have come into this environment of deciphering contrast in order to give birth to desires. But we notice that in that deciphering process, the first thing that you usually do is identify what is wrong. And there's a tendency to get too hung up for too long on what is wrong and not fast enough turning your attention to the desire that is born out of your awareness of what is wrong. And so when you beat the drum of something that's bothering you, you tend to work a little groove into that set point. And so in time, you just, without meaning to, you call it unconscious. We call it not having vibrational awareness. But we don't want to call it unconscious because the guidance is always there. So we want to call it ignoring the way I feel, because someone outside of me has said that I'm not supposed to feel good. Somebody outside of me has said it's better for me to do what they say I should do than to do what I want to do or what would feel good to me to do it.
Is unconscious a word that you don't like in this context, or does it have another meaning that you understand?
The reason that we are avoiding the word is because it sounds like I am incapable of garnering control of my experience, and we do not acknowledge that. In other words,
I see. It's like we have no control over it.
You were born with guidance that gives you the control. And when you utilize the guidance, in other words, it's all about this vibrational relativity. Every moment of every day, the way you feel is about who you really are and what you really want and what you're doing with your thoughts right here, right now. And you have utter control about what you're doing right now with these thoughts.
So the thing that I was talking about, the things that we're thinking about, but we're not consciously aware that we're thinking about them, or
well,
that's not unconscious.
What we want to say to you is don't be unconscious about your thoughts. Pay attention to the way you feel so that you're always conscious. And you don't have to know what the thought is or where it came from or who gave it to you. You just have to know how it felt when it got there. And if when it got there it felt good, then try to stay on the same vibe with it. And when it got there, if it feels bad, then try to distract yourself from something that doesn't feel so good.
So the mole example, or someone with a back that's a carpet of hair, I know they didn't manifest that. Is that hereditary? Where does gene makeup come into that? Or I'm trying to understand that we create our reality, everything in it, and the balance between that and genes.
Well, now you're going into the area that we were talking about earlier, that as we are guiding you toward in your now, directing your thoughts, you have to acknowledge that you didn't begin just now. That you were a creator who made the decision to come forth into this time-space reality and in this body. And so it's logical that you had set thoughts into motion. And so the timing of your birth and the placement of your birth, all of that is about the intentions that you held. But the thing that we really want to say to you, from your non-physical perspective, you were not precise about the placement or timing of your birth. Esther said, I'm sure that something went wrong. I should have been born in Malibu. But your intentions from non-physical are about who you really are and what you want to achieve. And so in this, the best example, we've given this over time, and we think that you can hear it easily. The best example is if you were a really good tennis player, you would not be looking for a partner who you could beat every time you played them. You would want a partner who brought more skill forth from you. And so, well, some of you are looking for that one you can beat occasionally. But for the most part, you want something, and certainly from your non-physical perspective, you're looking for something that will be the platform that gives you the best likelihood of remembering who you are, rediscovering who you are, and going beyond who you have ever been. So you didn't say, I'll come forth but clean it all up before I get there, and then when I get there I can just observe pleasant conditions and I can just regurgitate what is. You said, I am a creator and I look forward to an environment that will stimulate the new desire within me, because a new desire that is born within me summons source, summons life force, and that is the vitality that is life. I want to be on this leading edge, riding this wave of creativity. That's who you are. That's what you want, you see. And so all of that is within you, and all of that is pulsing over here in that point of vibrational relativity. It's all there for you. Plus, this vibrational point of relativity is being constantly added to by your day-to-day preferences. You get to decide who you want to live with, how you want to live, how much money you want to make, what kind of car you want to drive. You get to decide every bit of that. And for those who worry that that's not spiritual, that that's too materialistic, you are living in a physical world that is meant to manifest for you in a material way. It is meant to reflect every dream that you hold. And so the question is not whether you are worthy of that. The question is that, are you on the vibration of that, you see? And your emotions tell you every time how far you are. The children play a game, hot and cold, where they identify an object, and if you get closer to it, they say hotter, 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 hotter. If you get further from it, colder, 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 colder. It's the same sort of thing. Where did you lose track of the fact that good is good? If it feels good, it is good, you see. And people worry about that. They say, well, won't some mass murderer get some idea? I saw the picture in the paper. He had a grin on his face. He liked chopping those people up. I know he did. And we say, you have no idea how disconnected from who he really is he was feeling before he came to that. In other words, if this were a world where more of you were in tune with who you are and in vibrational alignment, there would be no mass murders. There would be no bombs dropped on other cities. There would be none of that. That all comes from disconnection, which is fear-based, which is disallowance of who I am, and then trying to control conditions so that I can feel better. And we say it's time to give that up. It has never worked, and it will never work.
Well, thank you for helping me get to a better place. I have one quick question, and then I'll let someone else come up. You, Abraham, do you ever get frustrated with us when we're here in front of you?
You are the very first one. It's easy to feel good when you truly know that all is well. It's easy to feel good when you know the outcome is always good. And so we never feel frustration. We never feel worry. We never fear for you. We only feel knowing of your well-being and an intense desire to help you know it too.
Thank you. There's great love here for you.
There is great love here for you.